6.4. Operant conditioning deals with the learning of active voluntary behaviors that are shaped and maintained by their consequences. Edward L. Thorndike was the first psychologist to systematically investigate animal behavior and how voluntary behaviors are influenced by their consequences. Thorndike placed hungry cats in puzzle boxes that allowed escape by some simple act. Through trial and error, the cats learned to unlatch the puzzle box door and escape. On the basis of his observations, Thorndike formulated the law of effect. Responses followed by a satisfying state of affairs are strengthened and more likely to occur again in the same situation, whereas responses followed by an unpleasant or annoying state of affairs are weakened and less likely to occur again. American psychologist B.F. Skinner searched for the lawful processes that would explain order in behavior. He believed that psychology should restrict itself to studying only phenomena that could be objectively measured and verified, outwardly observable behavior, and environmental events. To Skinner, the most important form of learning was demonstrated by new behaviors that were actively emitted by the organism. Skinner coined the term operant to describe any active behavior that operates upon the environment to generate consequences. In other words, his principles of operant conditioning explain how we acquire the wide range of voluntary behaviors we perform in daily life. Operant conditioning, or Skinnerian conditioning, explains learning as a process in which behavior is shaped and maintained by its consequences. Reinforcement is said to occur when a stimulus or an event follows an operant and increases the likelihood of the operant being repeated. Positive reinforcement involves following an operant with the addition of a reinforcing stimulus. Positive reinforcement has occurred if the response is strengthened, that is, if the organism is more likely to repeat the operant in similar situations in the future. What constitutes a reinforcing stimulus can vary from person to person, species to species, and situation to situation. Negative reinforcement involves an operant that is followed by the removal of an aversive stimulus. Negative reinforcement has taken place if escaping from or avoiding the aversive event has the effect of making the organism more likely to repeat the operant in similar situations in the future. Aversive stimuli typically involve physical or psychological discomfort that an organism seeks to escape or avoid. A primary reinforcer is one that is naturally reinforcing for a given species, such as food, water, adequate warmth, and sexual contact. A conditioned reinforcer or secondary reinforcer is one that has acquired reinforcing value by being associated with a primary reinforcer. Money is a conditioned reinforcer. Punishment is a process in which a behavior is followed by an aversive consequence that decreases the likelihood of the behavior being repeated. Two types of aversive events can act as punishment. Punishment by application, or positive punishment, involves a response being followed by the presentation of an aversive stimulus. Punishment by removal, or negative punishment, involves a response being followed by the loss or withdrawal of a reinforcing stimulus. Punishment is more effective if it immediately and consistently follows a response. Punishment has several drawbacks. It doesn't teach a more appropriate response. It may have undesirable results such as complete passivity, fear, anxiety, or hostility, and its effects are likely to be temporary. Skinner strongly opposed the use of punishment. He advocated the greater use of positive reinforcement to strengthen desirable behaviors. The effectiveness of positive reinforcement can be enhanced in several ways. For example, apply the Premack Principle, that is, use a more preferred activity to reinforce a less preferred activity. Skinner believed that operant conditioning principles could and should be applied on a broad scale to help solve society's problems. His most controversial idea was that free will, self-determination, and individual choice are just an illusion. A discriminative stimulus is a specific stimulus in the presence of which a particular operant is more likely to be reinforced. In Skinner's view, an individual's behavior is not determined by a personal choice or a conscious decision, but rather by environmental stimuli and the person's reinforcement history in that environment.